Hi guys, welcome to Stardust Astrology. I hope you're doing great. This is your Vedic forecast for the full moon falling on the 10th or 11th of April 2017, depending on where you live. I'm using sidereal positions, which means this full moon is happening at 27 degrees of sidereal Virgo and is conjunct retrograde Jupiter at 23 degrees Virgo. Both Moon and Jupiter are in Chitra nakshatra, and this is a short forecast for all of you who are going to be touched by this full moon. Now, what does it mean to be touched by a full moon or a new moon? This means that this full moon falls on or opposite to your natal ascendant, moon, sun, or any other personal point. This basically means you have personal planets or points in Chitra nakshatra around 27 degrees of Virgo, or at the opposite place, which is 27 degrees of Pisces. Full moon is always the time of the month when one area of your life suddenly gets all your attention, and things tend to speed up in that area, let's say 2 days before the full moon. The influence is felt for some 10 days after the full moon. And the house that gets your attention is usually the opposite house of where there was a new moon, which was bringing new developments for that month. See, nature has a way of maintaining balance. So this month we started a new cycle with the new moon in Pisces. This was Piscean energy. So now we are having the full moon in Virgo, which is the opposite energy and is needed to strike the balance back from dreamy, relaxed, who cares, go with the flow, Pisces. If you look at the chart of this full moon, you can see 4 retrograde planets. Now, out of all visible planets, 5 can go retrograde. There are 7 visible planets, and all of them, except Sun and Moon, can go retrograde, and they do go retrograde from time to time. And out of those 5, 4 are now retrograde, meaning Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn. Only Mars is moving direct. What this means is simply a change in direction, and with so many retrograde planets, there has to be a change in direction, and they're connected. I will show you how. Saturn has been stationary these days, and he's now starting to move backwards through Mula nakshatra in Sagittarius. Saturn, this transiting Saturn, is ruled by Jupiter, right? Because he's in Sagittarius, and Jupiter is now transiting Virgo, and he's also retrograde. And since this full moon is so close to Jupiter, it's going to illuminate both Jupiter retrograde and his agenda in Virgo. The full moon, which is happening in Virgo, is ruled by Mercury, who is turning retrograde at the moment in Aries. So this screams a change in direction. So basically, whatever we started working on in Sagittarius house is now changing direction. Whatever Jupiter was doing in Virgo, it was preparing the ground for this full moon, and is now changing direction because Mercury, who rules the full moon, is also turning retrograde. If I would do this forecast sign by sign, it would take me like 10 hours to do that. So I'm going to give you the general forecast, and you can put it in houses in your chart. And if you want to talk about how this affects you personally, you can contact me on my email, for which I'm putting the link below. Now, with this full moon, what will be most prominent in our lives around the days of the lunation is the following: arguments, litigations, work, meetings, appointments, assignments, planning, scheduling, health, charity, service, giving service, pets, perfectionism, self-criticizing. These are just some of the basic ones. Now let's examine them one by one. Okay, let's talk about arguments first. People touched by this full moon will feel the need to communicate in an argumentative way. Most of all, Virgo and Pisces. It can also happen if this planet triggers your if this full moon triggers the lord of your second or third or let's say seventh house, maybe even ninth, or if it happens in houses 2, 3, 7, 9, 1. I said 1 already, Virgo, right, and Pisces. So those touched by this full moon will be prone to analyzing, criticizing, and accusing, because this is what a Virgo moon does. A Virgo moon explains logically why you're wrong and they're right, gives you arguments for that, and tells you what is right instead or what you should do to improve. Virgo moon is all about improvements. And because this full moon is in Chitra, whoever is touched by it will feel the need to dominate the conversations. Chitra is one of Mars-related nakshatras, and all Mars-related nakshatras need to dominate something. They're combative in a way, but in Chitra, they can be domineering and combative in a kind of charming way. That's one of the benefits of Chitra. Generally, this is a full moon of conflict, right? It falls in the house of Virgo. And since it conjuncts Jupiter retrograde, who is also in Chitra, the conflict may be about what we believe. Thinking that what we believe in internally is a fact. This will be the tendency of people touched by this full moon. Retrograde Jupiter has to do with our internal beliefs, and when it is in Virgo, beliefs are based on arguments and logic rather than faith. And we tend to believe that if we rely on our logic and arguments, things will turn out well. Since Jupiter expands whatever he touches, there may be too many arguments here, too much analysis. There could be also moralistic accusations in terms of this is right and that is wrong. I'm right and you're wrong, you know? People touched by this full moon will provide a sharp, detailed analysis of why this is so. Mars element is also strong here because it is happening in a Mars-related nakshatra, plus Mercury, who rules this, is in the sign of Mars in Aries. Now, when Jupiter is retrograde, we also have the potential to question our beliefs and not follow them blindly. Now, let's be real. Not everything we believe is true, right? So if we want to grow and develop, the best way to use this full moon is to examine our beliefs, which will now lead us into a conflict. What if they are simply not true? As I said, the Virgo full moon is ruled by Mercury, who is just turning retrograde, which means that we are shifting from logical thinking, which is prominent with Mercury direct, to intuitive thinking for the next 3 weeks. More creative part of our brain will resonate to Mercury retrograde energy. And I spoke about Mercury retrograde in a separate video, for which I'm putting the link below, so you can go watch that. It's applicable to any cycle. And with all of this, there is definitely something in our belief systems that we need to question and rethink now. Now, apart from arguments and conflict, this is going to affect employed people who are touched by this full moon. If you are employed and touched by this full moon, you can expect that it will impact your meetings, appointments, assignments, planning, scheduling. There is something there that needs to be redone or rescheduled, or there will be a total change of plans. You may have to redo a report or a plan or an announcement, for example. If you have employees working under you, these are also ruled by the natural sixth house in the sign of Virgo. Some of them may resign now, but let's say enter the leave period and definitely leave the company when Mercury finishes the whole retrograde cycle and leaves the shadow zone for good, which will happen around the next full moon in May. Another thing that is triggered here is service and the need to provide service. A lot of people will now do some kind of service to the so-called underclass or unprivileged people. And this is the astrological category of people who are either poor or sick or marginalized in a way, enslaved in a way, people who are doing serving jobs like cleaning houses, serving tables and so on, and even pets come into this house. So maybe it's simply time to give away some of your possessions or do some charity for a non-profit organization. Also litigations. If you're into any kind of litigation process, this may take a different turn now. Another possibility with this full moon is working too much. This is the time when you may really work hard, do many extra hours, and again feel you haven't done enough, because there is this self-critical tendency with this lunation, and you may try to achieve perfectionism, but there will be just too much detail involved, and you may get lost in detail. Or the work you have invested so many hours in now has to be put aside, and your assignments take a completely different direction. Now, if this is the case and you feel the frustration, I want you to repeat after me. Perfectionism is a non-existent idea invented by people who are addicted to feeling bad about themselves. Let me repeat this. Perfectionism is in reality something non-existent. This is an idea invented by people who are addicted to feeling bad about themselves. Think about it. Moon in Virgo is always longing for a cleaner, tidier, better organized world, free of all quote-unquote imperfections. And they are really convinced, sincerely convinced, that they know what perfection is better than the creator or God or universe, however you relate to this force themselves. So it may be one of the beliefs to re-examine now, because honestly, this belief that you know what perfection is better than whoever created life, that's just foolish. Okay, now I'm starting to criticize, so it's probably time to stop. Oh, and I almost forgot. Great spice to this full moon is the potential to use humor and charm. You will be energetically supported to add them to your conflicts. After this full moon, Venus is finally turning direct on April the 15th, and this means that she's starting a completely new cycle of around 18 months related to relationships, enjoyment, beauty, money and luxury. And the energy is such now that we are encouraged to take me-first approach in all these Venus-ruled areas. Mercury will turn direct on May the 3rd, and Saturn will be retrograde for quite some time, but I'm going to make a separate video on that. That's a long subject, long to talk about. And you are welcome to comment below on how these transits influence you. I would love to hear about that because it helps me learn more. As well as you can post what you would like me to do in terms of what kind of content you would like to see on this channel. So if you like this video, please click like, subscribe, and share the content. Thank you for listening and have a great rest of the April. Bye bye.